My wife cheated on me with her boss, then drained our $250, $0 savings to buy a house for her affair partner. Now she's suing me for half the property I inherited from my dad, claiming I hid the truth from her. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Thank you very much. Now, let's begin the video, using a throwaway for obvious reasons with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. Honestly, it feels like I've been living in some twisted nightmare I can't wake up from. It all started with little signs. My wife, Jenna, had been acting different for a few months, more irritable, secretive about her phone, disappearing for hours without explanation. At first, I thought she was just stressed at work or maybe dealing with some personal issues. She always insisted she was fine, and I wanted to believe her. But looking back, there were tiny things that didn't add up. She started wearing new clothes, more expensive jewelry I'd never seen before, and her phone started pinging constantly, more than usual. She'd brush it off when I asked about her late nights at the office or her mysterious texts. I remember catching her one night, sneaking her phone into her purse when she thought I wasn't looking. I saw a message from a guy named Mark, her boss, apparently, that said, "Can't wait to see you tonight. Missed you all day." My stomach dropped, but I told myself it was just work talk. Women flirt with their bosses all the time, right? I told myself that to sleep at night. But then things got worse. I noticed her avoiding me more, giving me half-hearted kisses and rarely wanting to have sex anymore. Honestly, I felt like I was losing her and I didn't know why. I tried talking to her, asking what was wrong, but she'd brush me off with a sharp comment or a fake smile. Still, I kept pushing because I loved her and wanted to fix whatever was broken. One night, I decided to follow her. I didn't want to invade her privacy, but I needed answers. She said she was working late, but I waited outside her office building. After a while, I saw her slip into a car with Mark. They looked intimate, laughing, touching, and leaning close. It was clear they weren't just colleagues. I felt like someone punched me in the gut. I couldn't believe she'd do this, cheat on me with her boss, the man who was supposed to be a mentor or whatever. That's when I knew for sure she was cheating. It wasn't just some fling or a one-time mistake. It was serious, and it was happening right under my nose. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious all at once. I didn't know what to do next, but I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. This was the kind of betrayal that changes everything. The next few days were a blur of rage and confusion. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Jenna's face, her fake smile, her lips on Mark's neck, the way she looked like she was genuinely enjoying herself. It was like a punch to the stomach every time I thought about it. I kept replaying the moment I saw her with him, over and over, trying to make sense of how she could do this to me after everything we'd been through. I started digging into her phone, her emails, her social media. I needed proof, something concrete to show me I wasn't crazy. And sure enough, I found it. Hidden behind a folder labeled Work Files, there were dozens of texts, pictures, even videos, Jenna and Mark in hotel rooms, at her apartment, even in our bed. She lied about working late, lied about being tired, lied about everything. I also found bank statements, huge withdrawals from our savings account, around $250, $0 gone, all spent on a new house for Mark. I couldn't believe it. She drained our life savings to buy a place for her affair partner while I was still working my ass off trying to build something for us. I felt like my world was crumbling. All those years, all that trust, gone in a matter of months. I was angry, yes, but mostly just hurt that she'd lied, betrayed me, and then used our money to cement her new life with him. I confronted her that night. I was trembling, voice tight, cold fury in my eyes. I told her I knew everything. I laid out the evidence piece by piece. She looked stunned at first, then her bitchy attitude kicked in. She scoffed, said I was paranoid, that I was imagining things. She told me I was crazy, that I was overreacting because I was insecure. "You're just jealous," she snapped. "Mark's the one who's successful, not you. You're just a boring husband who can't keep up." I couldn't believe her. How could she lie so effortlessly? How could she turn this around on me? I was furious. I told her I wanted a divorce, that I wanted her out of my life. That's when she started crying, but I could see it was fake. She begged, said she loved me, that she was just stressed, that she needed more excitement, more passion. She made it sound like I was the problem, like I was just some insecure guy who couldn't handle her success or her independence. The emotional fallout hit me hard. I felt like I'd been sucker punched. My stomach churned, my chest tightened. I was just angry. I was devastated. I trusted her for so long. I thought we had a real future. And now I was staring at the wreckage of what I thought was a happy marriage. I didn't know how to process it. Part of me wanted to lash out, to do something destructive. Part of me just wanted to crawl into a hole and disappear. But I knew I couldn't stay silent forever. I had to figure out my next move. I had to decide if I was going to fight for my dignity or let her walk all over me. I couldn't believe she'd do this, drain our savings, betray everything we'd built, and then have the nerve to lie about it. I kept thinking about the money, how she used our life savings to buy a house for her lover, all while pretending everything was fine. That's when I realized this wasn't just about infidelity anymore. It was about betrayal on a whole other level. After I confronted Jenna, things escalated quickly. She kept insisting I was overreacting, that she didn't do anything wrong, and that I was just being paranoid. I could see her bitchy smirk whenever she lied, trying to turn the tables on me. She kept saying she loved me, but her actions told a different story. I was done playing nice. I needed to come up with a plan, something that would hit her where it hurt, especially considering how she drained our savings and bought that house for Mark. I spent the next few days trying to process everything. I couldn't believe she'd taken everything from us, our hard-earned money, our future, my trust. I started thinking about what to do legally, how to protect myself. First, I contacted a lawyer. That was step one. I needed to understand what my rights were, especially since she was trying to claim I'd hidden the truth from her about the inheritance. I knew she'd lie and manipulate, but I had proof of her affair, her financial drain, and everything else. Meanwhile, Jenna kept up her act, acting like the perfect wife, crying crocodile tears in front of friends and family, trying to paint me as the bad guy. She kept spinning stories about how she was just stressed, how Mark was just a friend, how I was insecure. It was all bullshit. I didn't buy her lies anymore. I knew she was manipulative, and I knew I had to be smarter. My plan for revenge started to take shape. I decided I'd expose her to everyone, our friends, family, her boss, anyone who would listen. I wanted her to feel what it was like to be humiliated. But more than that, I wanted her to lose everything she thought she could get from me. That included the house she bought for Mark. I knew I had a legal claim on the inheritance from my dad, and I wasn't going to let her take that away from me. I also started gathering evidence of her spending our savings, bank statements, her texts with Mark, photos of the house she bought, everything I could use later. I also contacted a private investigator. I didn't want to leave anything to chance. I needed her to see that I was serious. I wanted her to realize I wasn't going to be some pushover anymore. I had to protect what was mine and make sure she paid for her betrayal. The more I uncovered, the clearer it became that she'd been planning this for months. She drained our accounts, bought that house, and lied her way through everything. I decided I'd use this against her in court, and I'd also make sure her reputation took a hit. While all this was happening, Jenna was still trying to keep her image intact. She threw herself into her role as the innocent wife, but I saw through it. I knew she'd lied to everyone, that she'd cheated on me with her boss, and that she'd drained our savings. I was furious, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I knew I had to be strategic. If I was going to fight her, I had to do it smart. I couldn't let her manipulate me or spin her lies anymore. I had to be prepared for the fight of my life, and I was ready to take her down, legally, financially, and socially if I had to. That's when I realized that this wasn't just about getting even. It was about reclaiming my life, my dignity, and my future. I'd been blindsided, but I wasn't going to let her win. Not without a fight. The more I dug into her financials and her lies, the angrier I got. I started putting together all the evidence, text messages, bank statements, photos of the house she bought for Mark, and her attempts to cover everything up. I knew I had to act fast before she spun any more lies or tried to hide her tracks. That's when I decided to confront her again, but this time I was prepared. I had everything laid out, undeniable proof of her betrayal and financial betrayal. I called her into the living room one evening. She was acting calm, pretending everything was fine, but I could see the flicker of panic in her eyes when she saw the folder I had in my hands. I dumped everything on the table, photos of her with Mark, the bank statements showing withdrawals, the receipts for the house she bought for him, and the texts where she confessed to the affair. Her face twisted in anger and denial. "You lied to me. You lied to everyone," I said coldly. "You drained our savings, bought a house for Mark, and you're trying to pretend none of this happened. How could you do this to me?" She sneered, her bitchy attitude coming out full force. "You're overreacting, John. I was stressed, okay? Mark's the one who's successful. I needed something more excitement, more passion. You're just too boring, and I was just looking for a little fun. It doesn't mean I don't love you." I couldn't believe her. She was trying to gaslight me, acting like she was the victim. I told her I was done listening to her lies. I told her I was filing for divorce, and I was going to get everything I deserved. That included the house she bought for Mark, and I was going to fight her for the inheritance from my dad, something she had no claim to. I knew she'd try to spin it as I hiding something, but I had proof I inherited that house legally, and I wasn't going to let her steal what was rightfully mine. Her reaction was pure venom. She yelled, calling me a jealous, insecure husband who couldn't handle her success. She said I was crazy for even thinking she'd cheat, that I was just paranoid. But I didn't care. I was done playing nice. I told her I was going to take everything she'd taken from me, my money, my trust, my dignity, and she could try to spin her lies all she wanted. I was going to make sure she paid for what she did. That night I started making moves. I contacted my lawyer, filed for divorce, and began the process of reclaiming my assets. I also hired a private investigator to keep tabs on her. I wanted to catch her in any further lies or misdeeds. I knew she'd try to manipulate the situation, but I was prepared. I had the evidence, the legal standing, and the resolve. I wasn't going to let her walk away with everything, especially not the house I inherited or the money she stole. The emotional toll was brutal. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I knew I had to stand my ground, fight for what was mine, and let her know that I wasn't going to be her doormat anymore. This was the beginning of the end of our marriage, and I was determined to come out of it with my dignity intact. I just hoped I could do it without losing myself completely in the process. The days that followed were some of the most intense of my life. I felt like I was in a war zone, emotionally drained, constantly on edge, but also more determined than ever. I spent every free moment working with my lawyer, gathering more evidence and planning my next moves. Jenna, of course, kept up her act, acting innocent in front of friends, trying to spin her version of events, but I saw right through her. She was panicked, furious, and trying to hold on to her life as she knew it, but I knew her game now. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. I had a meeting with my lawyer, Sarah, and we mapped out our strategy. She told me I had a solid case for the inheritance. My dad's house was legally mine, and I could prove that Jenna had no claim to it. We also discussed how to handle the lawsuit she was planning to file, claiming I hid the truth about the inheritance. Honestly, I wasn't worried. I had all the proof I needed. I was ready to fight her in court, but I also knew I had to hit her where it hurt outside of the legal system. I started leaking bits of information to our mutual friends and family. I told them about the affair, about the money she drained from our savings, and about the house she bought for Mark. I didn't do it out of revenge alone. Well, maybe a little more because I wanted everyone to see who she really was. Jenna was furious when she caught wind of it. She started calling me names, trying to discredit me, but I didn't care. The truth was out and I had witnesses. Meanwhile, I also began secretly recording conversations. Jenna was getting sloppy. She'd slip up and say things that proved she was lying, about her affair, about the money, about her feelings. I captured everything. I knew I could use it all in court or to destroy her reputation if it came down to that. One night, Jenna exploded. She stormed into my office, screaming, accusing me of trying to ruin her life. She threatened to sue me for half the property I inherited, claiming I'd hidden the truth from her. I looked her straight in the eyes and told her she was a liar and a cheat. I told her I'd fight her all the way. I felt a strange mix of anger, sadness, and relief, like I was finally taking control of my life again. That moment was a turning point. I realized I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. I had to stand up for myself, no matter how painful it was. I knew Jenna's lies would keep coming, but I had enough proof to expose her. I also knew I'd need to be prepared for her next move, whether it was more legal threats, public smear campaigns, or whatever else she threw at me. Deep down, I was exhausted, but I also felt a strange sense of liberation. I was finally taking back what was mine: my house, my dignity, my future. I didn't know exactly how it was going to end, but I was ready for the fight. I was done being the victim. It was time to be the one in control, even if it meant facing my worst fears and enduring a lot of pain along the way. That's what I kept telling myself, that I'd come out stronger on the other side, even if it didn't feel like it right now. The courtroom days were the most draining of all. Jenna's lawyer tried every trick in the book, claiming I'd hidden the inheritance, that I was being unfair, that I was trying to cheat her out of her rightful share, but I had everything. The legal documentation proving I inherited the house from my dad, the bank statements showing her drained our savings, the texts, the photos, even her own words caught on tape confessing her affair. I watched her spin her lies, but I also saw the cracks in her facade. Her bitchy, manipulative attitude was slowly unraveling under the weight of the truth. In the end, the judge saw through her manipulations. My claim to the house was solid. The court awarded me full ownership of my inherited property, and Jenna's attempt to claim half was denied. The judge also ordered her to pay back the money she drained from our savings plus interest. That was a small victory, but it felt huge. I finally felt like I had reclaimed some dignity, some control over my life. Jenna's face when the verdict was read was priceless. She looked stunned, then furious. She screamed and yelled, but the judge had already made his decision. Her lies had been exposed and her reputation was taking a hit. I didn't gloat, I just felt numb. All the pain, all the betrayal, it had led to this moment. I realized I'd been carrying a heavy burden for so long, and finally I could start to breathe again. After the court case, I moved out of the house we had shared. It wasn't easy. I'd spent years building that life with her, and now I was starting over. I rented an apartment nearby, trying to piece my life back together. I cut all ties with Jenna, blocked her from my social media, and refused to let her manipulate me anymore. The emotional scars still hurt, but I knew I'd survive. I'd learned a lot about betrayal, about trust, and most importantly, about my own strength. Reflecting on everything, I realized that this experience taught me some hard lessons. Trust is fragile, and sometimes the people you love can turn out to be the ones who hurt you the most. But I also learned that revenge isn't about sinking to their level. It's about standing tall, fighting for what's right, and reclaiming your own life. I don't regret fighting for my house or my dignity. If anything, I'm proud of how far I've come, even if it's been a brutal journey. To anyone out there dealing with betrayal, know that you're not alone. It hurts, it's unfair, and sometimes it feels impossible to move on. But eventually, the truth comes out and your strength will show through. Don't let anyone steal your happiness or your future. Fight for it, even if it means losing everything else along the way. Because in the end, the only thing that truly matters is that you stay true to yourself.